So first, we're going to start with a quick video about youth and development.
Peace Corps is a life-defining leadership experience. Volunteers live, learn, and work with a community overseas for 27 months, providing assistance in a variety of program areas, including youth and community development. Peace Corps volunteers act as catalysts for change in a wide variety of locally sustainable projects, working with students, parents, and other community members. From experienced educators and social workers to recent college graduates, volunteers bring diverse experience and educational backgrounds to their assignments.
Peace Corps is special because volunteers get to work firsthand with community members. We build personal relationships. We are in the homes, we are in the community centers, we are in the organizations. We are just amongst the people, making decisions with them, interacting with them on a daily basis.
Peace Corps is a very different type of work than any other work I could even imagine. Bridge to the Future has one primary project going on right now that has to do with youth employment in the community. That occupies a lot of their time, and also a lot of the people who come to our office are coming regarding the services that project provides, which are things like job placement services, vocational training courses, and job seeking skills trainings. I help them whenever they're planning new projects, help them with the project design, writing project proposals, trying to get grants. As we have ongoing projects, I just get involved in whatever aspect of them I can help out in.
Well, the first thing that I did was accompany the social workers into some of the different areas. And through that, I got to see the poverty and the condition of the families. Well, since I have a background in business, I decided that I would focus on small business projects. The bakery program was first started as a workshop. The workshop lasted for 3 months, and then we converted it into an income generation project where we sold the bread, and I shared the money to buying more materials and giving money to the kids. With the baking project, taught a lot about responsibility, working in teams, sharing. Like a lot of these children, they're from some of the poorest areas in Ecuador. So they don't really know about sharing or working in teams. So that was something that I try to implement in their daily lives. So for me, it's a good opportunity for them to be involved in activities and not out stealing or joining gangs.
My primary projects are art-focused. In Azerbaijan, young people don't have the opportunity to really express themselves artistically. And allowing youth to find their artistic self is very important to me. It provides youth with critical thinking skills, with self-expression, with stress management, with all the things that I think are very important for a young person to develop so they can become a better adult.
I believe in education. People grow through education. You learn, you empower. That's what it's all about here. It is about change. Changing of yourself, changing of your mind, and changing of your soul. Finding that gap between who you are and what you really stand for.
To find out more about serving overseas as a Peace Corps volunteer, please visit peacecorps.gov.
Yeah, so that's just one example of, or a few examples of what the youth and development sector does. Now we're going to switch over to a video about the education sector.
Peace Corps is a life-defining leadership experience. Volunteers live, learn, and work with a community overseas for 27 months, providing assistance in a variety of program areas, including education. Education is the largest area of assistance requested by Peace Corps' host countries and includes a variety of assignment areas. Volunteers bring diverse experience and educational backgrounds to the classroom, ranging from skilled educators to recent college graduates.
I work in the primary school here. My main objectives are literacy and numeracy. With kids that small, what ends up happening though is in order to teach them how to read, you really end up doing a little bit of everything. You teach a little bit of science and then maybe you do some spelling words that focus around science. You end up playing a lot of games with the kids and just trying to show other teachers how you can use alternate classroom techniques. You get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing the kids grow on a daily basis. And just, getting to see their smiles.
As an education volunteer, my primary responsibility is to be a teacher here at the secondary school. I teach many classes, primarily science subjects, to over 300 students. I think that I'll be able to apply the things I've learned here in Peace Corps about working with people, about myself, to probably anything that I do after I leave here.
Our primary project here is teaching English as a foreign language, and apart from that, to transfer new teaching methodologies to our Georgian counterparts.
Things that we think are really basic in the United States, like doing group work or worksheets or dialogue, are kind of new concepts here. So even without the Peace Corps training, just having been through the American education system is helpful because we have some sense of different techniques you can use.
My primary task is working in a school, and that's totally the opposite of what I thought work would be like in the Peace Corps. In a way, my life is very regimented, more so than it was before I came to Bulgaria. So I wake up, I have a class, the bell rings, I sit with the teachers in the teacher's lounge, and it's still something that I'm getting used to. I realize every day that I'm in a unique position in this. I see the results every day. Just the enthusiasm that students have for projects that I suggest, for extracurricular activities. I see the impact almost immediately, which is kind of cool.
Peace Corps training did help a lot. And then being here at school, watching other teachers teach and have those teachers watch me teach and give me pointers, what to do, what not to do, those things helped.
Shafiq is mainly helping us with teaching. He's also helping our staff, teachers, with the computer because most of us do not know how to use a computer. So basically he has been an asset since he joined us.
Teaching is a learning experience. You learn every day, and I don't think you ever stop learning.
To find out more about serving overseas as a Peace Corps volunteer, please visit peacecorps.gov.
I was active.
So yeah, that's just a little bit about the youth and the education sectors, which are the two sectors we are going to focus on today. Now I'm going to let Caitlin and Haley introduce themselves because they are two recruiters. And then I'll let Hunter and Sam, who are our panelists for today, introduce themselves.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Caitlin Barker. I'm one of the two MSU strategic recruiters. Sam is my colleague, so he's also a recruiter, but acting as a panelist today. I'm a PhD candidate in history at MSU, and I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer who served in Cameroon as a health education volunteer from 2014 to 2015.
Hi everyone, my name is Haley. I'm a dual degree graduate student at University of Michigan. I'm studying environmental policy and planning and public policy. And I served in Zambia doing rural education development from 2019 to 2020.
Hey everybody, my name is Sam Bigley. I am the second Peace Corps strategic recruiter at Michigan State University. I served as a youth development volunteer in Morocco from 2017 to 2019. And now I'm fairly, sorry guys, I'm having a hard time articulating this. I am involved in a lot of food and agricultural stuff in Lansing as well, on top of being a Peace Corps recruiter.
And then my name is Hunter. I was an English foreign language teacher in Kosovo from 2018 to 2020.
Thank you both. So I think we're just going to dive right in and start. Can you explain a little more about what your primary project was in the Peace Corps? What did that entail?
So as a youth development volunteer in Morocco, Peace Corps partners with the Ministry of Youth and Sport. So volunteers are sent to both rural and urban communities all over the country to work as part of a youth development center, a sports center, or a women's center or women's clubs. I primarily worked with youth centers, although I would go on to work with other institutions in my site, doing English classes, life skills curriculum, and facilitating and co-collaborating on generating like summer camps and things like that, other events and activities.
Yeah, I was the 5th group of volunteers in my country, so it was still a relatively new project there. So they were still integrating into communities. My primary project was just teaching English to one class. So I had one 6th grade class that I taught my first year, and then I moved on with them to 7th grade. But similar to Sam, it always branched out from there to teaching English classes to other classes in the school, to other schools in the area, to local universities even. So it just kind of evolved from 6th grade into everything.
Cool, thank you guys. If you could now talk a little bit about what your secondary projects were, or if you already sort of touched on that, if you could maybe tell our audience what secondary projects are.
So I will say that my secondary project kind of became my primary project. Within the first year in my site, I kind of noticed that there wasn't a lot of students coming to what we call the Dar Shabab, the youth center. So what I started to do, I strategically went out and partnered with different youth development associations in my site. A lot of that had to do with capacity building through community partnerships and assisting different associations in hosting their events, meeting management, other partnerships within my site. Basically, I was trying to lay the groundwork for another Peace Corps volunteer since I was the first one in my site in roughly 10 years and a decade. So I was laying the groundwork for another Peace Corps volunteer to come in and basically have a better chance at working with these associations and the youth center and building on that rapport.
So my secondary projects were all the other classes that I would work with, as well as any after school clubs that we could get going, and as well as like workshops that we would do throughout the year that we would try and keep on repeat. So we had just a life skills workshop that we would do when all of the teachers were on strike for a month and a half, where we were able to get students in and we were going through conflict resolution, as well as, how to write essays and how to use essays and writing in conflict resolution. So life skills, and then environmentalism as well with quite a few of my classes. So we ran some food drives and got put on the news, which was an exciting moment. But yeah, so environmentalism and life skills.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. With secondary projects, you can pretty much do everything. I did a lot with like gender equity, just because that was one of my passions while I was in the Peace Corps. But building on that, there are a lot of opportunities to like do volunteering abroad with youth and education. What led you to the Peace Corps instead of some other organizations that do very similar work?
Speaking for myself and kind of the experiences that I have had, before the Peace Corps, I had been involved as an AmeriCorps state member with the Power of We Consortium in Lansing that focuses on food insecurity. A lot of what I brought into the Peace Corps kind of comes from that. And I wanted to, have an opportunity that challenged me both personally and professionally, and kind of, broaden my horizons is probably the best way to really describe it. And as I'm a trained anthropologist, I have a bachelor's in anthropology. Going somewhere, immersing myself in a different culture and a different language is something that I've always wanted to do as well. And yeah, and it ended up being like a very rewarding and profound experience.
Yeah, I grew up a military brat, so my move to Kosovo was my 20th home in my 12th or 13th state in my third country. And so my whole family was all about service. They were all military. They were all about that. But I'm actually deaf in my left ear and I can't hear. So I was unable to join the service. I'm not crying about it, but I was unable to join, but I still wanted to do some service in some way. and kind of get it back to the States. And my dad was the one who suggested Peace Corps to me, and I just automatically fell in love within the first 6 months of being there. Just couldn't get enough of it. So that's kind of how I fell in.
Cool. Thank you both for those good answers. We are now interested in hearing a little bit about the knowledge and skills that helped you during your Peace Corps service. So as you look back, what knowledge and skills were particularly important for you to be a successful volunteer?
For me, a lot of the knowledge and skills that I gained as an AmeriCorps member greatly helped me in doing the secondary project that would, soon overcome the primary project while I was in my site. A lot of that had to do with community partnerships, understanding how organizations can work together and how those partnerships can benefit the programs, the events, the classrooms that they're coming into. A lot of classroom management, classroom skills I had kind of picked up, since a lot of my experience, even in college and coming out of college, was focused on tutoring, peer education, and working with refugee youth in Lansing as well. So a lot of classroom management, being able to do things on a larger scale, but while still fostering a good relationship with individual students, I found to be the most rewarding skills to have coming in to the youth development sector.
For education, and in my country, in particular Kosovo, it was adaptability, empathizing, and patience. So it was a post-conflict zone. So everyone who was 25 or older had memories of the conflict. And so there would be teachers, and there would even be students in university that had these memories. And so being able to just take a step back from your American self and be able to empathize and put yourself in their shoes a little bit and understand where they're coming from and how their language skills have developed, as well as understanding what their skills were before. So just coming in with an open mind, and then using the skills that you would get during training as well to go through classroom management, work on projects with all the teachers, and then the patience of understanding those teachers might not want to work with you, or they might not have the skills that you anticipate. And so then taking those skills and teaching them to them. We had some computer classes that we were able to run where what we take for granted as basic computer knowledge was just miles and miles beyond what they were getting. And so we were doing typing classes and such. So just coming in with even what you know, or just skills that you have no idea that they're going to be that helpful.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those. Now we're going to transition a little bit and talk about after service. So how has your international service, your time in the Peace Corps, benefited you now that you're out of the Peace Corps?
For me, having that international experience, especially in a close-knit community, such as my host site, it's Tamig Roots in Morocco, really helped me bring back a basis for community. Obviously, I had been in service programs before and as an AmeriCorps member, but Peace Corps being part of not only a community, but a more communal culture, influenced me to really connect with the cultures, especially in Lansing, which is where I had lived before the Peace Corps and lived after the Peace Corps. And that really kind of pushed me into the direction of food and agriculture. After I had gotten back, it was December of 2019, so COVID was right around the corner. So a lot of what I was doing was remote or like outside. I started to focus a lot more on that, becoming an apprentice vintner at a winery, becoming part of the Lansing Urban Farm Project Board in Lansing, now part of the Eastside Lansing Food Co-op Board that is also located in Lansing now, and starting my own urban farm. And honestly, I don't think that I would have had the courage to really navigate that, or the, self-belief really to do that without the Peace Corps. And then subsequently, I suppose, the pandemic that was right around the corner, unbeknownst to me.
Yeah, so since teaching English overseas, I went in with a business major and had no idea how to teach. And since then I have gone on to get what's called a CELTA, which is Certified English Language Teacher to Adults. So I actually run online classes where I teach to incoming Afghan refugees, and I work with students all over the world, and I still have friends who are doing that as well. And it's something that I never thought I would do. And it's a little bit of a digital nomad life of I can teach anywhere and be able to do this, as well as just understanding that failure is not necessarily a setback. So in the Peace Corps, I ran into a lot of times where you would have a project and it would crash and burn. Just absolutely. And you would think it was the end of the world. And then your host mother would come over with a cup of tea and just like ask what was wrong, and then be like, why are you worried? Like, it'll be fine. Just move on to the next one. And so like using what I've learned there to be like, okay, this isn't the end of the world when these big projects or big plans I have in life don't happen, don't work, and just adapting and overcoming and moving on to the next thing, and recognizing your own skills that you learned in the Peace Corps and how you can apply those to anything.
I like the cup of tea example. We should all bear that in mind. Okay, so still on the theme of after service, we often have applicants who are really interested in what to do if they want to go to grad school soon after the Peace Corps. So even if you yourself didn't go directly to grad school, I'm sure you probably had people in your Peace Corps service. Can you talk a little bit about grad school and how that works for volunteers who want to apply?
So full disclosure, I still have yet to go to graduate school. So I definitely wasn't applying during the Peace Corps. A couple of the other volunteers that I served with were, and they would take leave days to essentially, take the GRE. I know that you can take the LSAT as well, the Foreign Service Officer examination, or like the MCAT. And now as a recruiter, I can officially say you have 3 administrative leave days to do that at any point in your service. And there is a little bit of leeway as well. I think that a couple of the volunteers I had known who had applied to graduate school had left probably a couple of months before like official like close of service date. So there is a little bit of leeway in that.
I as well did not go to grad school right away. I had several friends that did, and it just opens the doors, even in taking the GRE and taking the GMAT, because when you're applying to those schools, you're not alone. You've got your cohort with you. That's like your biggest hype man, and they're all helping you. And so I can't tell you how many personal statements I proofread while we were there of like, hey, you've seen me in service. What do you think of this? And so like, it just became one big group who was helping everyone to get into their grad schools. And so that's kind of how we were able to work it with my cohort and my group.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I wanted to talk a little more about graduate school and the Peace Corps. One, because at the University of Michigan, we have a program called Coverdell. And Coverdell is a scholarship program that not every university has. I say that because I was under the misconception that every university had Coverdell when I was applying. And so I also thought it was something that every Peace Corps volunteer got. Also learned that is not true, but it is a highly lucrative scholarship. It's just very decentralized. So it depends. Your program can set its cost or the amount like of scholarship you can earn. Some programs, it covers everything and gives you a living stipend. Other programs, it just waives your like application fee. So it's all across the board, but it is a great opportunity. Also, it always looks good on your resume to have the Peace Corps. People love to see it. People love to talk about it. You then can get jobs. Haley and I and Caitlin both got this job because we were Peace Corps volunteers, and even Sam got his job. But I was just thinking from the graduate school part. At the University of Michigan, you have to be a graduate student to be the Peace Corps recruiter. So that is a requirement. So there are a lot of benefits there. And now we do have a few more questions prepared, but we also wanted to open the floor to see if there were any student questions. You can put them in the chat, or you can come off mute and state them. We want this to work for you.
Hi, I have a quick question. I'm Megan. I'm a graduating senior this year from the School of Public Health. And I was just wondering if there's any service or like opportunities for service that are shorter than the 27 months, like maybe in the 12-month, like a year range.
I can take this question. I know I'm technically not on the panel, but so there are, since you are you, so you're a senior in the School of Public Health, but like you're still an undergrad, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I should probably clarify. Yeah, I'm graduating from the undergrad program.
It's okay. I just wanted to double check. I was pretty sure, but so there is something called the Peace Corps response. Usually you have to have a little more experience or a little more, like you have to have a graduate degree to be in that. However, things are very flexible right now due to the reopening of the Peace Corps. If any of the other recruiters want to talk about that, you can too. So there is that opportunity, and you can look, we can send you some information and you can look into that, because there's also, I forgot, what's the health? Can someone help me with what the specific health one is? It has a special title and I don't remember it right now.
I don't remember either. Yeah, I mean, I think that what Hannah said is what I would have said as well in response to this question, that in normal times, it probably wouldn't be very feasible to think about doing Peace Corps response directly out of undergrad. It's usually, well, for a long time, it was only for returned Peace Corps volunteers. And this is basically because they expect you to be able to really hit the ground running already with the language skills in place without needing like cultural training that you would get for the 27-month program. A big difference is that for the 27-month volunteer program, you do 3 months of training first and then training interspersed throughout your service. But for the Peace Corps response, there's not really any real training. There's a few days. My father was actually a Peace Corps response volunteer in Martinique, or not Martinique, I'm sorry, in St. Lucia. We visited Martinique and St. Lucia, which is why it came to mind. But he had already served like 30 years earlier in Niger in West Africa. And his experience as a response volunteer was like, in many ways pretty challenging, because like he was, yes, at the top of his career and he could do the technical work, but you really don't get a lot of cultural orientation or really the same kind of cohort experience that you do in the 27-month program. So it really is designed for like mid-career professionals who have a really specific skill that they're ready to share. But also, as Hannah said, like this is a weird time, and it's a good time for you if you're applying for the Peace Corps, because applications are still really down, honestly, after COVID, and there is less competition for those places. But just know in your mind that if you do apply for that, you would be having a very different experience than the 27-month program we've described.
Yeah, also Megan, I found it. It's the Advancing Health Professionals Program. It's a specific a response program for health. I did send you the link in the chat. And then another thing Haley mentioned in the chat was the Fulbright programs. Those are mostly English teaching and research based, but they are shorter, only about 1 year. And that could be an option for you too.
Okay, yeah, I see the links. Thank you guys so much. I guess so, like, in your opinion, would you recommend applying to the response team? Like, Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to.
There's a big variety of response postings. So browse them.
Okay.
If there's one that you feel like you're qualified for, then I mean, in general, my approach to applications is that you should always apply for things. The worst that can happen is that you don't get it. But take a look yourself at the variety of response postings that are available right now, because they're usually quite specific and they usually have pretty serious requirements, like 10 years of experience and a PhD, things like that. But take a look.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll look through the requirements for those.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and also if you need help applying, us recruiters are here to assist you with anything you may need, which actually goes really well into Dana's question. So she says she's the junior, looking to apply to Peace Corps after graduation. When should they start applying?
I mean, for me, I originally applied to be in the business sector in a totally different country. And 6 months later, they told me that wouldn't work. And then the day after that, they said, hey, that didn't work, but do you want to teach English in Kosovo? You can leave in 6 months. So sometimes it takes that, right? You don't get accepted and then you hope for another posting and then it comes up. I believe my wife, who I met in the Peace Corps, hers was like 3 months or something like that, or 4 months. Like she applied, she did the interview, and then they're like, hey, you want to go? She's like, sure. And then she hopped on the plane. Like, so it varies. It depends on what you're applying for and what your skills are. I'm sure the recruiters know far more about this than I do, but like those are just two personal experiences I know. Like my wife's was really quick, and then mine was a whole year of applying and waiting.
That's really interesting. Yeah, sometimes the process can be expedited if you fit into another role better, a different posting or something like that. But a good rule of thumb is there are quarterly application deadlines. There's one January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, and then October 1st. And typically you want to give the application review team and then everything else that's in the process a full 8 to 9 months. That's kind of what you're looking at from submitting that application, and then for when your departure date typically is. After COVID, some of them are more expedited. Some of them you'll apply and then depart in 5 months. All that really depends on the specific country and sector specific work that you are applying to on the website. And of course, all the postings are updated on the website. The deadline coming up is the April 1st deadline, but there will be some for the next quarter deadline as well if you want to peruse those.
Hi, I had 2 questions. My name is Bobby. I'm a junior here at Michigan as well. My first question is, do you guys believe that there's a right time to apply to the Peace Corps over another time? Like I hear many people say you should apply straight out of undergrad. Do you think that's the best decision, or that it makes no difference in applying later on in life? I'm contemplating whether I go to work full time and then go to the Peace Corps, or if I should go straight out of undergrad because it may be harder later on. So I just wonder what you guys think.
I mean, I didn't apply directly out of undergrad. I worked for 1 year first. So I guess I applied shortly after I graduated, but because it takes a long time to actually head off, I did work for a full year before I started. And I thought that was a benefit, honestly. It's a really challenging experience in a lot of ways, and every bit of wisdom and experience that you can bring to Peace Corps will make you a better volunteer. So if there's a particular opportunity that you're already thinking about that you want to do right out of undergrad, that's totally fine. I mean, it more has to do with your own life trajectory, I think, and your life plans. We had people who ranged from like 23 to 70. We had actually a Vietnam War vet in my cohort. And so people do it at every stage in their lives, and it's really a pretty personal choice that you can make. But another thing is you can always, I think I'll let Sam talk to this, right? Like you can also apply more than once in your life too. And if something comes up that you can do that thing and then apply to the Peace Corps again, it's very flexible and it's always there for you.
I will say that I had a similar experience. I had applied a year after I had graduated and gotten my bachelor's, pretty similar to what Caitlin is mentioning right now. It is my job to get undergrads like excited and applying within like that year or two after they graduate. But of course, like Caitlin also said, you can apply later on in life. The only con that I can really see in applying later on in life is that you have to kind of show to Peace Corps that you have no more dependents, like that kind of stuff, that you have your life settled in America to then go and do a 27-month long minimum service program abroad. That's the only con that I would say that there is, that may be a bit more difficult to get in if you start like building a life, more or less.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. My second question, more broadly, what are skills or experiences or anything related to that you feel you were able to pick up from the Peace Corps that you feel has kind of like shaped your life, professional or whatnot, outside of that, like moving forward? And from a lens of entering like a business corporate space after the Peace Corps, what are like the biggest positives of like having this experience and then entering that space that like would make me a like different candidate, that makes sense, than like my peers? Just like, how does this experience, or how has this experience shaped like your life moving forward?
So personally, that's a somewhat similar journey as to what I've done. Is I went into the Peace Corps and then I came out, and it's all the soft skills, in my opinion, that you learn in Peace Corps, and those aren't easy to put down on paper. But the soft skills you learn of adapting to any new situation, kind of thinking outside the box. You've been in a different culture, which just shapes how you think in all reality, and you shape how they think. It really does change you as a person, and you understand the world in such a different way that it's hard to sometimes communicate that to people who aren't returned Peace Corps volunteers, of like, no, but you understand that this is this, and like it's not always that. So, and the soft skills you learn, and in particular for me, was adaptability. Was at any moment things are going to change, projects are going to crash, like I said, that you have to be ready to, okay, that hurt, it's over, I'm moving on to this, I have these skills, I still have these components from that project, what can I change it into? Which then kind of moving on to a corporate world, I worked in apartments and sales, where you can be like, well, no, we have this, now we can alter it this way, and we can do this, and it really just changes how you think about the world and see things.
Thank you so much.
Do we have any other questions from the students?
I have one more question, actually. I guess, what was the hardest part about getting acclimated to your host site?
I will say for me, it is the overwhelming hospitality of it all, because I could just be going for a walk in my site and be called in 3 different times to Casse-Croûte, which is kind of like 11Z's afternoon tea, any of the Hobbit meals, if anyone likes Tolkien. But yeah, I basically all the hospitality culture was very hard for me to kind of prioritize which families am I going to like go and like hang out with today. So that's more or less like one of the joking aspects of like Peace Corps services, that like Hunter had mentioned, it's just like your host mother will bring you a cup of tea. one of the most endearing things, but also like sometimes very painful, gastrointestinally, gastronomically. Another one of the challenges that, I mean, just speaking directly of my service, during that whole first year of my service, I was trying to enact educational programming with little to no support from different associations in my site, even staff members at the youth center. And as Hunter had mentioned, like, you have to be adaptable, you have to be resilient, you kind of have to be proactive. So that was a big challenge in my service, just having that whole first year of experience being like, am I doing something wrong? Like, what is going on here? And then thinking, all right, it's been a hot second since there's been a volunteer here. And that I need to start building these relationships. So, you know, there's a bit of a Peace Corps legacy for the next volunteer to kind of build upon.
Yeah, again, we all kind of smile when we think about our first year and some of the very funny stories of adapting into your new host site and the cultural faux pas that you do that you don't anticipate. And, you know, I got caught walking in a river barefoot, and I had all of the village children laughing at me for the next 2 weeks, which is really tough as a teacher when you're trying to make them stop, right? But also on, like he was mentioning, you know, kind of the work aspects of, you know, everyone's so friendly, but they don't seem interested in this project, even though they said they want this project. So like, am I doing something wrong? Am I communicating it the wrong way because I don't know the language? Like, so just kind of those situations of, you want this project, you've told me you want it, but do you actually want it? Am I the one in the wrong? Did I misunderstand? So a lot of those.
I think something I would add that maybe emulates what Sam said as well is just like going from, so I went right from undergrad and going from so much structure day to day and being held accountable for like your time in such formal ways to having a lot of like freedom with how you choose to spend your time was a pretty difficult transition to me. You really have to hold yourself accountable. I mean, like people will like care when you're not there, but like you really have to make sure like you show up on time, because like sometimes like the school day, for whatever reason, people don't show up until 11, even though like everyone told you the day would start at 8. And so like your consistency in showing up can really set a good example, I think, for your students as well. But I think sometimes it's hard when you're there for 3 hours, like waiting for people to show up to do it again the next day and the day after that, and like keep doing it until like the students, you know, start to come a little earlier every day too. So just trying to keep your own structure was really, really a tough thing for me.
Those are really insightful. Gastrointestinal problems may also, I might relate to that. We'll see. But yeah, thank you.
To help with that, you are also provided with like a first aid kit and access to medical care and vaccines. So do not worry too much about that. I know that is a big concern.
Yeah, you'll have an on-call doctor or a whole medical staff that's just for Peace Corps volunteers, PCMO, Peace Corps medical officers. You can call them 24/7. They direct your care over the phone if you're far away from them, or if it's serious, or if they're close to you, you can actually go in, and there is always a Peace Corps medical office as well in the capital usually.
Lots of ORS.
And the Peace Corps med kit is just iconic. Everyone gets it. I think I still have mine. I don't know if we're supposed to, but I still have mine. I was in evacuation. They weren't paying attention, but the Peace Corps med kit it's pretty standard throughout, and everyone gets one.
And you get a lot of health training as well, even if you're not a health volunteer, but during the 3 months of training before you go to your site, there's they will teach you everything you need to know about the specific health challenges of your country too. Yeah. Are there other questions? You guys have had really great questions. Okay. Oh. Then I'm excited for this, one of our last questions. I would like to hear from our two panelists. What's one thing that you want people to know about your host country?
So I have two. I'll start with kind of the more objective and then subjective thing later. Apparently Morocco was one of the first countries to recognize US independence in 1777. Learned about that as I was, preparing to go and serve in Morocco. And it makes sense. Morocco has been part of the Peace Corps programming since it started in 63 as well. And that kind of shows you can travel around the country anywhere. You're welcomed by people and they guess that you're a Peace Corps volunteer just because, you're speaking the language, you're wandering around, probably wearing like old ragged clothing, potentially, that Peace Corps life. And then the other one, of course, is like the cuisine. Nothing can really prepare you. You can look up like everything about Moroccan cuisine, and then Morocco is kind of like a melting pot in and of itself of many different cultures that are native, Arab, there's French, there's Spanish in the north. And that, of course, is just reflected in the cuisine and the infinite amount of combinations of a tagine or couscous, or one of my personal favorites is khabshehma, which is just like bread that's cooked with fat and they say it's more like Moroccan pizza. It is the most delectable thing in my mind.
I have not had dinner yet. That was cruel. So mine's a little bit more of a downer. So Kosovo is a post-conflict zone. So there was a genocide in 1999, which, as I kind of mentioned before, everyone then has memories of it. And so it's still fresh. I would check my landmine map when I would go out hiking to ensure that, yeah, it was a fun time, to ensure that I wasn't upsetting my safety and security officer that you also get in Peace Corps, who trains you about where not to go. And so it's sad in that sense, but it has the highest United States approval rating of any country in the world, including the United States. And there is a 10-foot tall statue of Bill Clinton in the capital city, right on Bill Clintoni Boulevard. And there is a genius that opened up a pantsuit store and called it Hillary, and it is right on the same block.
Those are perfect. Thank you both so much.
Yeah, I think that wraps up the last of our questions. If you do have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us. I am putting the MSU and the U of M emails in the chat. So if you have any further questions, we also all have office hours where we are willing to meet with you and talk more about the Peace Corps, the application process, and any other questions you have.
Thank you all for coming.